The truth that no one tells you. The hidden dangers of traveling after 70. Have you ever wondered if traveling after 70 is still a good idea? Does the desire to explore the world compensate for the risks that many ignore? What if that dream trip turns into a nightmare away from home? As we age, our body and mind undergo inevitable transformations. What was once just a long flight or a sightseeing walk can now be the start of a big problem. And the question that few ask before packing their bags is it really worth it? If you or someone you love is considering embarking on a road trip after 70, this video might open your eyes. We will show facts, real situations, and silent risks that many only discover when it is too late. Let's get started. 1. The invisible price of travel. When adventure becomes a financial hole for many seniors, retirement represents the beginning of a new phase. It is the moment when there is finally time to do what was previously postponed: travel, visit places, enjoy life. But what few people consider is that, after the age of 70, travel is no longer just a matter of leisure and starts to involve financial risks that can compromise the stability achieved over decades. The first trap is in the international health system. Many seniors believe that their traditional health insurance plans cover any emergency, regardless of the country. Unfortunately, this is not the reality. Most medical insurance plans do not offer coverage outside the country of origin. And when an emergency happens on foreign soil, the cost of care can be unbelievable. A simple hospital visit can exceed thousands of dollars. And if there is a need for hospitalization or medical evacuation, the values skyrocket. Emergency air evacuations can exceed $30,000, an amount that often comes straight out of the traveler's pocket due to not having adequate travel insurance. But it doesn't stop there. Another frequent trap is lasthorror.com. Cancellations are more vulnerable. It is common for the elderly to have to cancel the trip because of an unexpected medical complication. Unfortunately, many airlines, cruises, and hotels maintain strict, non-refundable policies, which means that when canceling the trip, the loss can be total, not to mention administrative fees, fines, or the emotional exhaustion of trying to reverse the situation. And there is also another type of risk, more subtle but equally dangerous: scams aimed at the elderly. Many criminals exploit the digital inexperience of older people to offer fake packages, tempting promotions, or non-existent accommodation. The vulnerability increases even more when the elderly person is away from home, with limited access to verification or support channels. Cases of fraud involving fake accommodation, non-existent tour packages, or even cloning of cards in tourist terminals are increasingly frequent. And the damage isn't just financial. It comes with stress, insecurity, and a deep sense of frustration. A study published by the National Council on Aging warns that seniors are the main victims of travel scams, and that the emotional impact of a scam can directly affect mental and physical health. Therefore, before packing, it is essential to make sure that everything is properly planned. Researching the reputation of agencies, checking insurance clauses, understanding the limits of the health plan itself, and avoiding suspicious promotions are indispensable attitudes. And above all, never underestimate the value of preparation, because a poorly planned trip can cost much more than money. And the scariest thing? This is just the first of the dangers that surround travelers over 70 years old. 2. The enemy you don't see: how germs and viruses can sabotage your health. Have you ever thought about how many different surfaces you touch during a trip? From the airport doorknob to the airplane tray, through handrails, menus, remote controls, and even the elevator button. Now imagine that multiplied by thousands of people playing the same places every day. This is the ideal scenario for the spread of viruses and bacteria. And for those over 70, the risk is not just catching a cold. It could be the beginning of a serious complication. As we age, our immune system naturally weakens. This means that the body has a harder time fighting off common infections, such as the flu, colds, or even simple diarrhea. But in an unknown environment, with exposure to different microorganisms, the risks are amplified. A virus that, in a younger person, would cause only temporary discomfort can lead an elderly person to hospitalization, especially when it comes to respiratory diseases such as strong flu, pneumonia, or more aggressive viral infections. And the travel environment is ideal for this type of contamination. Airplanes, for example, are closed places with recycled air and many people sitting side by side for hours. In these spaces, it only takes one sick person for the virus to spread silently through the air or surfaces. In addition, changes in climate, food, and routine further aggravate the situation. In many countries, tap water contains different bacteria than the body is used to. A simple glass of water or a salad washed with local water can trigger a strong intestinal infection. And it is not uncommon for the elderly to suffer from episodes of vomiting, diarrhea, and severe dehydration as a result. In a younger body, the digestive system recovers quickly. But for those over 70, the effects are more intense and recovery can take weeks. Another factor that few consider is the constant handling of cash, which passes through many hands and is rarely sanitized. Or the use of public transport in countries where the level of hygiene is different from usual. All of this forms a set of invisible exposures, which can be dangerous without the person realizing it. But is there a way out? Yes. Some simple precautions make a difference. Wash your hands frequently, use alcohol gel, avoid raw food in unknown places, and drink only mineral or filtered water. It is also important to keep vaccination up to date, especially against flu and pneumonia. When traveling internationally, additional vaccinations may be required or recommended and should be taken seriously. In addition, it is essential to carry basic medications for gastrointestinal and respiratory symptoms, and if possible, talk to a doctor before the trip to receive personalized guidance. The truth is that the greatest risk is not always visible. It can be on the plate, in the air, or in the handshake. And if it is ignored, it can turn a light trip into a long recovery. But this is still not the biggest challenge that awaits travelers over 70 years old. 3. Beautiful but inaccessible places. What no one tells you about international destinations. Traveling to another country can seem like a magical experience. Exotic scenery, historical monuments, fascinating cultures. But behind all this beauty, there is a reality that many elderly people only realize when they are already at their destination. Not every place is prepared to receive people with reduced mobility. Access ramps, handrails, elevators, adapted bathrooms. These elements are common in well-structured places, but they are not present in all tourist destinations, especially in older countries with stone streets, steep staircases, and uneven sidewalks. And when locomotion becomes a challenge, the trip begins to cease to be pleasurable. For those over 70 years old, climbing a slope, walking long distances, or even balancing on slippery floors can pose a real risk of falling, pain, or exhaustion. Now, imagine facing these difficulties far from home, without the support of your safety net and with language limitations. It is at this point that the dream trip can turn into an endurance test. And we are not just talking about people with physical disabilities. Even active and healthy seniors can face unexpected obstacles in places with limited accessibility. In some regions of Europe, for example, it is common for historic hotels not to have an elevator. Rooms are on high floors, accessible only by narrow, steep stairs. In countries in Asia and Latin America, public transport can be cramped, confusing, and disorganized. Getting on and off buses, holding onto high bars, or walking on makeshift platforms can be dangerous, especially if your body is tired or your reflexes are slower. Another challenge is in organized sightseeing tours. Many of them have tight schedules, require quick commutes, and don't always offer rest stops or adaptations for those who need more time. In these situations, the elderly may feel pressured to follow the group, and end up exceeding their own physical limits. And even when the destination seems safe, there are details that go unnoticed. Public bathrooms with stairs, restaurants with difficult access, sidewalks without adequate lighting. These small details accumulate and generate stress, discomfort, and even pain. Therefore, planning the trip with extra attention is essential. Choosing destinations with good infrastructure, looking for accommodations that offer accessibility, checking if the tours are adaptable, and asking about the level of physical effort involved are attitudes that make all the difference. It is also important to talk to the travel agent or tour guide before the trip, explaining the limitations and needs. And if you are traveling alone or with people who do not know your care routine, it is even more worthwhile to document everything clearly. The truth is that the landscape can be beautiful, but if the path to it is full of obstacles, the experience is no longer pleasurable. And unfortunately, many only discover this when they are already too far away to turn back. But this is still just one of the many challenges hidden behind an international trip after the age of 70. 4. Tired body, heavy travel. The hidden effect of fatigue on the elderly traveling can be exciting. The expectation, the boarding, the new destination, everything seems magical. But for those over 70, the body may not keep up with the same rhythm as the mind. And tiredness, which was previously solved with a good night's sleep, becomes an obstacle that persists for days. Travel fatigue isn't just a feeling of tiredness. It is a deep physical reaction caused by a sum of factors that often go unnoticed in planning. Long commutes, waits at airports, lengthy check-ins, commuting between cities and different time zones. All of this demands a lot from the body, especially from an organism that is already more sensitive. One of the great villains is the so-called jet lag. The change of time zone directly affects the biological clock. And while in younger people, the adaptation takes only 1 or 2 days, in the elderly, it can take up to a week. During this time, sleep is impaired, eating becomes dysregulated, and the body cannot recover as it should. The result is a cycle of exhaustion, irritation, and loss of energy. Another problem is the quality of sleep. Sleeping in different beds, hearing strange noises, dealing with uncomfortable mattresses and unregulated temperatures can compromise nighttime rest. And without sleeping well, the body does not regenerate. Immunity drops, concentration decreases, and mood changes. All of this directly affects the enjoyment of the trip. In addition, there is the natural physical wear and tear of tourist activities. Long walks, stairs, queues, museums, monuments, and sites often require hours of walking distance. And even with breaks, the accumulation of daily effort wears out the body. Over time, pain in the back, knee, and feet arises. Pressure can fluctuate, circulation slows down, and in more serious cases, swelling in the legs, dizziness, and malaise appear. There is also the impact of irregular eating. When traveling, it is common to eat at different times, try unfamiliar foods, and often consume less fluids. Silent dehydration is a leading cause of weakness, mental confusion, and falls in older adults. And it all adds up. It is a sequence of small aggressions to the body that, together, cause intense fatigue. A fatigue that goes beyond the physical. It affects the mind, the mood, the disposition. Therefore, it is essential that seniors plan trips with sufficient rest breaks. Avoiding tight scripts, including recovery days, maintaining regular times for eating, and respecting the body's signals are attitudes that make all the difference. Traveling slowly isn't about wasting time. It's about making sure your body follows the journey safely. And if even with all these precautions fatigue comes, you need to be prepared to adapt the itinerary or, if necessary, interrupt the trip before the wear and tear becomes a serious problem. Because the biggest risk is not feeling tired. It is ignoring the body's signals and carrying on as if everything is fine. But fatigue isn't the only silent factor that can sabotage a trip. There is yet another danger: often underestimated, that can arise in the most critical moments: the communication barrier. When speaking becomes a challenge, the hidden dangers of the language barrier. Have you ever imagined needing urgent help in a country where no one understands what you say? Calling for help, explaining symptoms, finding a remedy, all of this sounds simple, until you're in a place where the local language is completely different from yours. For those over 70 years old, this communication difficulty can be more than frustrating. It can be dangerous. In moments of leisure, the language barrier can be circumvented with mimes, apps, or the goodwill of the natives. But in sensitive situations, such as a medical emergency, a transportation problem, or a booking confusion, relying on digital translators can be risky. Translation apps work well with simple sentences, but when it comes to describing a specific pain, allergies, symptoms, or medical history, technical vocabulary and local expressions complicate everything. Imagine an elderly person with high blood pressure trying to explain this in Russian, or someone diabetic trying to refuse a sugary meal in the Thai countryside. The chance of miscommunication is real and dangerous. In addition, in times of stress, it is natural for the mind to take longer to reason, and for the elderly, this response time can be even slower, making it difficult to try to make themselves understood quickly. Another challenge is the reading of signs, labels, and warnings. Medications with different names, safety instructions in another language, menus without translation. All of this contributes to confusion, wrong choices, and even health risks. And at airports or bus stations, understanding the announcements and guidelines is essential to avoid mismatches and misplacements. Now imagine if, beyond the language barrier, there is a health emergency. Trying to communicate in a foreign hospital without speaking the language and without someone who can translate accurately is a situation of extreme vulnerability. Even when you take out travel insurance, you need to be able to contact the center, explain what is happening, and follow instructions in another language. And there is not always someone around to help. Therefore, preparing before the trip is essential. Learn basic phrases in the country's language, such as "I need help," "I'm allergic to," or "I'm feeling sick," can save lives. Carrying a card with translated medical information, including chronic illnesses, allergies, medications, and emergency contacts, is a simple but powerful strategy. Traveling with someone younger or who speaks the local language also offers more security. In addition, hiring local guides or services with service in Portuguese can avoid uncomfortable situations. Communication goes beyond words. It involves understanding, being understood, and making decisions clearly. And when that fails, the risk is multiplied. Because in a foreign land, not being able to communicate is more than a nuisance. It's being alone, even surrounded by people. But even with the tongue working well, there is another physical and invisible obstacle, which can appear silently and knock down even the most excited traveler. Falls. 6. A misstep. How a fall can change everything from one moment to the next. Imagine being in a distant country with cobblestone streets, narrow stairs, or uneven sidewalks. You're walking, enjoying the scenery, when a simple imbalance makes everything change. For those over 70, a fall is not just a scare, it is a real emergency that can change life in segundos. As the years go by, the balance becomes more fragile. Muscle strength decreases, reflexes slow down, and bones become more fragile. This means that common falls, such as tripping over a step or slipping on a wet floor, can result in serious fractures, especially hip, wrist, or spine fractures. And the worst thing is that these falls often happen in tourist places that are poorly prepared to receive people with reduced mobility. Old hotels without elevator, restaurants with access by stairs, museums with slippery floors, and even bus or boat rides that require balance and firmness when going up and down. All of this becomes dangerous ground for a more sensitive body. But the problem does not end with the fall. In many countries, medical care may be delayed or limited. Overloaded hospitals, language barriers, lack of adequate structure for the elderly. And even if care occurs, the recovery process away from home is extremely difficult. Imagine needing emergency surgery in a foreign hospital with no family members around and having difficulty communicating. In addition to fear and pain, there is the risk of permanent sequelae. Many seniors who experience falls while traveling return home with lasting physical limitations. And recovery, which is already challenging by nature, becomes even more difficult when it begins in an unfamiliar environment without the support of a trusted family or medical network. Another critical point is the psychological impact. After a fall, it is common for the elderly to develop fear of walking, insecurity when leaving the house, or constant anxiety. And this can generate a cycle of immobility, loss of autonomy, and isolation. Therefore, prevention is essential. Choosing destinations with good accessibility makes all the difference. Avoiding streets with rough terrain, uneven sidewalks, or stairs without handrails is a smart attitude. Bringing non-slip shoes, using canes or walkers when necessary, and always carefully observing the surrounding environment are effective forms of protection. It is also important to include frequent breaks in the schedule to avoid extreme fatigue that can compromise balance, and, whenever possible, travel accompanied. Having someone around to help at critical moments can be decisive. The truth is that a small slip can become a game changer. And when you are over 70 years old, each step needs to be taken carefully, because on a trip, the danger is not always in the destination. Sometimes it's right under your feet. And if you think that falls are the biggest risk, get ready. There are even more unpredictable situations where neither physical preparation nor advanced care are enough. 7. Emergencies in unlikely scenarios. What to do when health fails far from home? You can plan everything. Choose the best destination, buy tickets in advance, pack your bags carefully, and even organize a smooth itinerary. But there is something that no preparation can fully predict: a health emergency. And when it happens far from home, the impact can be devastating. After the age of 70, the body becomes more vulnerable to unexpected complications: heart problems, blood pressure spikes, respiratory crises, adverse reactions to medications, drops in immunity, sudden infections. All of these can arise quickly and intensely, requiring immediate medical attention. At home, access to the hospital is simple. The trusted doctor is just a few minutes away. The tests, the history, the right medications, it's all familiar. But on a trip, especially an international one, the situation changes completely. It is common for the elderly not to know where to seek help. Hospitals may be far away, crowded, or require complicated bureaucracy for care. In countries where the health system is not public, treatment depends on immediate payment. And without good travel insurance, the values are scary. There are reports of hospitalizations that cost more than 100,000 Rs in a few days. In addition to the physical fright, there is the emotional trauma. Being sick away from family, in a strange environment, hearing an unfamiliar language, with pain and uncertainty. It's an experience that can leave deep scars, even after recovery. And it is not uncommon that, after an emergency like this, the elderly develop a fear of traveling again. Another critical point is medicines. Many people forget to take the appropriate amount or trust that they will be able to buy the medicine at any pharmacy. But the truth is that in other countries, trade names change, compositions vary, and what works in Brazil is not always available abroad. In addition, self-medication while traveling can be dangerous. Taking an unknown medicine or an inappropriate dose can aggravate the problem rather than solve it. Therefore, it is essential to consult the doctor before traveling. Ask for a thorough evaluation, review the latest tests, update prescriptions, and put together a personalized first aid kit. Take the medicines organized and labeled, with clear dosages and specific instructions. And of course, hire a complete travel insurance, which covers everything from hospitalizations to medical transport and early return if necessary. In addition, leaving a copy of the itinerary, contact numbers, and basic medical information with family members can help a lot if the elderly person needs support from a distance. Life is unpredictable, and although it is not possible to avoid all unforeseen events, being prepared makes all the difference. Because when health fails, time is precious. And on a trip, it can be the fine line between a scare and a tragedy. But not all difficulties are linked to the body. There are also those that affect the mind, and can arise even when everything seems to be under control. 8. Confused brain, anxious heart, the impact of disorientation in unfamiliar environments. Imagine being in a new city, streets you don't know, signs in another language, people coming and going quickly, and suddenly, that feeling of being lost. The heart races, the thought scrambles and fear comes. What if I can't go back? What if no one understands me? This situation, which may seem banal to younger people, can be a real crisis trigger for those over 70. Arnos.com age. The brain also changes. The ability to adapt to new environments decreases, mental reaction time slows down, and disorientation can appear more easily, especially in situations of stress, fatigue, or confusion of schedules. When traveling, all of this happens at the same time. Time zone, different weather, changes in food, too many visual and auditory stimuli, too much information. It's as if the brain was overloaded all at once. For many older adults, this burden results in intense anxiety, a sense of confusion, and in some cases, episodes of temporary disorientation. There are reports of people who forgot where they were staying, who got lost in airports, or who simply froze in public places, unable to reason what to do. These episodes are more common than you might think, and can be mistaken for signs of dementia, even when they're just momentary reactions to stress and change. In addition, there is a real risk of worsening mild cognitive conditions. People who already have some level of memory loss or difficulty concentrating may have their symptoms intensified while traveling. This not only compromises the enjoyment of the experience, but also puts safety at risk. Forgetting to take medication, losing documents, confusing addresses, entering the wrong places, or not being able to call for help. These are all real examples of how the mind, when overloaded, can fail in the most critical moments. And once again, the emotional impact is great. The feeling of not being in control, of being a burden, or of not being able to keep up with others can lead to frustration, shame, and even deep sadness. Therefore, it is essential to respect the limits of the mind, just as we respect those of the body. Planning the trip calmly, avoiding very chaotic places, maintaining simple and predictable routines, and taking breaks for mental rest are fundamental strategies. Having an attentive escort, always keeping documents with addresses and contacts nearby, and using resources such as identification bracelets can help in case of disorientation. In addition, it is important that the elderly person is emotionally prepared to deal with unforeseen events and knows that it is okay to ask for help, stop, breathe, and start over. Because traveling should not be a test of endurance nor of memory. It should be a safe, pleasurable, and respectful experience with one's own pace. And if there is a greater challenge than the physical and financial ones, it is this: taking care of the mind in motion. By now, you've understood that traveling past 70 isn't impossible, but it's definitely not the same as before. The risks are real. They go beyond what the eyes see or the heart feels. They involve the body, mind, health, money, and, above all, security. But that doesn't mean the dream of traveling has to be abandoned. It just means that it needs to be transformado. More cautela. More planning. And above all, with more respect for one's own limits. Travel can continue to be a source of joy and renewal, as long as you are aware of the challenges and know how to prepare for them. Whether choosing more affordable destinations, taking out good insurance, traveling with a reliable company, or opting for lighter itineraries, every decision counts. Because aging is not stopping, it's adapting. It is to recognize that the pace has changed, but the value of the experience continues. You can still visit incredible places, live unforgettable moments, and feel that unique emotion that only a good trip provides. But now, with wisdom, with attentive eyes and a calm heart. And if you decide to travel, let it be responsibly. May each step be thought out with care. Let every choice be made with awareness. And may each moment lived be remembered with joy and not with regret. After all, quality of life after 70 is not just about being alive. It is living BEM.com freedom with security and peace. So, before embarking, reflect. Will this trip add up, or will it weigh you down? Are you prepared for the unforeseen? Are you willing to adapt your route in the name of your health and well-being? If the answer is yes, then go. But take it easy. Go with preparation, go with respect. Because the best journey in life is the one in which we arrive right at the destination and come back even better.